So the FAA has developed this aeronautical decision-making model because of accidents such as Eastern 401 and other accidents as well. And it has a number of elements that we'll go through. One is crew resource management, which simply means that a crew member, for example, Eastern 401, or a single pilot, which would be single pilot resource management, SRM, either case, it involves obtaining all the information possible about the potential flight and to continue to gain as much information as your flight is going on, and to gain as much information after the flight as well. So all available resources includes the weather service, the aeronautical charts, other crew members, other people in the area. All of these things are involved in what crew resource management is. Crew resource management is at its core desire to maintain situational awareness. What's going on around us? Let's find out what's going on around us. Let's not just depend on what we see with our eyes, but there are other sources of information out there. Hopefully you've already watched the Eastern 401 video. The PIC, one of the conclusions they made in the video was the pilot in command should have assigned roles. Who's going to fly and who's going to work on the problem, right? That was one of the major things, is we weren't assigning, he wasn't not doing a good job assigning roles for different crew members. Remember, of course, as a drone pilot, as a professional drone pilot, you will at times have a crew, and so they need to be paying attention to what they need to be paying attention. The captain or the pilot in command is the one that's the leader here that has to help them understand this is your job, this is what you need to do, and make that really clear. And here's what I'm going to do. Distinct roles within a crew. So for the remote pilot, if we were in class, we'd discuss this. What could we do in a particular situation where there was a crew to manage that crew? But we're not. We're talking about a video here, so we're not going to do that. Furthermore, here's the basic definition. Manage all available resources prior to and during the flight to ensure the successful outcome of the flight. And that's information, again, is the weather, from weather reports, whether through the telephone or going online, the airspace, through looking at your sectional charts, making sure there's no controlled airspace, going to the flight service station people or online, either one, to find out if there's any temporary flight restrictions in the area. There's a lot of information that we ought to gain. Yes, we can go to Walmart, buy a drone, charge it up, go outside, throw that drone up in the air and fly around. That's what an amateur does. A professional pilot is going to check all available resources to ensure the successful outcome of the flight. This goes back to ethics. And yes, I get it. Recreational pilots, maybe they're just ignorant. It's not that they may not be doing it on purpose just to violate rules or to create a dangerous situation, but unfortunately that happens sometimes. And again, all of this training is for the purpose of enhancing situational awareness, the awareness of what's going on around you. Now, we know this as a fact, that life always involves some level of risk, but we're also aware that aviation in general has a smaller margin of error. Okay, the impact of poor decisions when you're walking down the street can be severe, but usually not very much. Driving has a pretty high amount of risk if we're careless. Flying has a lot of risk if we're careless. Even drone flying, you entail a lot of risk. That's why the FAA has all these rules, because things have happened in the past to risk property or life. So if we accept the fact that life always involves some level of risk, the only way to be a perfectly safe, and I have to laugh, occasionally you'll see on the news, yes, we're working to make aviation, commercial aviation, 100% safe. Well, it's nice to work towards that goal, but that's an impossible goal. We calculate, it seems cold, but we calculate the value of broken airplanes or people who die with profit and balance that out somehow. We certainly get a lot of bad press for killing people, accidental death, of course. So we don't want to go there either. We want to work towards 100%, but there's a certain level that we have to say, hey, we cannot make an airplane that's perfect, and we can't make a human being that makes perfect decisions every time. You can't train that. And everybody makes mistakes. But hey, let's do our best to catch those mistakes before they become serious. All right? So we have to decide what we do with risk, okay? And so ask yourself, what level of risk are you comfortable with? Or would you consider yourself a risk taker? Are you the kind of person that just goes out there and loves to take risks with their own life, perhaps, or perhaps with others? That's a little scary if you are. But anyway, you need to be self-aware. If you have a tendency to injure yourself or damage equipment often, you might want to consider or reconsider the level of risk that you're willing to take. So what action do you normally, and then ask yourself this question, what actions do you normally take to reduce the likelihood of a hazardous or dangerous situation from occurring? Now, we're not necessarily talking about flying a drone. We're talking about driving down the street. What do you do when you get in the car to drive somewhere? I mean, you put your seatbelt on, yes. You make sure you have good tires. The brakes work, things like that. You might want to look your car over just to make sure before you actually leave the parking lot and say, okay, well, I don't have a flat tire and I'm just going to drive off into. All right, so you do some things, of course. Even today, when we get finished with class, when you head on home, what risks may you encounter? Consider that. I mean, a drunk driver, perhaps, or I'm driving down the street and this happened. I had a sweet car back in the mid 70s, I guess it was. Yeah, late 70s. Driving home from work. It's been a long, hard day. I'm driving down this 2-lane road. We come to an intersection. They had to stop. I'm just looking straight ahead. This guy is in a pickup truck, just sitting there at the stop sign. I'm saying, okay, that's cool. And I don't know. I sort of noticed that he wasn't looking at me. He was looking straight ahead. And I'm thinking, it should have been a big clue for me, because he pulled out right in front of me. I smacked the side of him, T-boned him as hard as can be, totaled my car. Like, oh, how sad. Maybe if I'd have been a little more aware, I might have noticed that he wasn't looking at me. He was looking straight ahead. Like, he was looking at the car on the other side to see if that car was going to turn left or right. As soon as they found out that, he just jumped out to go. He wasn't looking in my direction. So there was a clue. So that's the kind of risk you might encounter on the way home. I could talk about this for 5 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. So consider that. Crazy drivers. Well, unfortunately, there are bad guys out there. It's 2 in the morning, you're at Walmart, back when it was 24 hours, 2 in the morning. Do you really think your girlfriend ought to be walking in the parking lot alone? Or should she evaluate the situation and say, I'm not sure I should take this risk? And you too, as well as you. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, the point here is that flying our drones is always going to involve some level of risk. We want to be aware of that and want to do our best to reduce that risk if possible. So what level of risk are we comfortable with? What actions can we take to reduce the likelihood of a hazardous situation occurring in a drone? What can we do? If you were to go out there right now, what would be some of the hazards? Well, if you're right here at the college, you've got the wires right outside the door here. We've got power lines. We've got light poles. We've got pine trees. There's wind. There's birds. Could be bird attack. I don't know. There could be a risk of, well, I've already warned you. Now, whether you heard what I was saying or not, I'm not sure, but UPS drivers come ripping around that corner right outside the drone thing there. So if you're at eye level, you're hovering the thing at eye level out there, that guy comes driving past there, it might be too fast for you to get out of the way. So I mean, there's lots of hazards. You want to think about that. Of course, if the weather was bad, if there was a lot of wind, turbulence around the buildings, or even at higher altitudes, if there was heaven forbid we'd be out there with a thunderstorm, but if there was a thunderstorm, lightning strikes are a risk. Lots of risks. So here's a sample risk assessment matrix. Okay, so How we work, how do we go through this? We go through this by saying, what are the risks today? We, yes, there are meteorites that sometimes fall from the sky. If a meteorite were to hit us, hit your drone, it would be catastrophic. Wow, you would be destroyed. I don't care how big if just a little tiny one would still destroy your drone. However, is it probable? No. Does it occasionally happen? Pretty rare. Remote, yeah, almost improbable. So it's down here in the green, right? Being hit by a meteorite, yeah, that'd be catastrophic, but it's not going to happen. Most likely, it would be very improbable. Okay. Um, Driving down the highway with and you've had over 0.04 blood alcohol content. You're driving at 80 miles an hour, it's dark and it's foggy and it just rained and the road is slippery. Um, that would be the severity of something that might happen in that condition would be high. You getting wreck off the road, hitting the telephone pole would be high. Is it probable? Eh, it'd be either probable or occasional, but probably probable that there would be some serious consequences from that behavior. That's sort of how we work through this. Uh, and that wasn't really a drone example, but I guess a better example may be, if we're talking about drones, would be flying in a thunderstorm, right? The catastrophic, getting hit by lightning is probably going to destroy your drone. So it would be catastrophic. It wouldn't be, either that, it'd be catastrophic, or it might be critical, but still, it's quite possible. It's almost probable, but at least it's occasionally. Occasionally, golfers get hit by lightning, so it may just, serious or high, occasional. So that's how you work through this. So anyway, we want to consider um, that possibility. We have a way. This is just simply a way. Don't need to memorize it, but it's just a way to consider the likelihoods of something happening. And we have this awareness color chart. I find this interesting as well because there's a number of self-defense books out there that you can read. Gavin DeBecker, there's another guy, I can't remember his name. It talks about when you're in normal switched off role, you're in level white, okay? You're at home watching TV. Doors are locked, you're in a safe neighborhood, you live in a safe neighborhood, everything, you don't need to worry about it. Okay, but if we were to go out on a road, we're driving, we'd want to be at least yellow. We'd be alert and aware, but relax, we're just driving, right? You're alert, you're aware of you're alert to what's going on around you. You're situationally aware, you're maintaining information about what's going on, and to the people who are around your area and to their body language as well. You're not paranoid. We don't want to live in paranoia constantly. But in this state, in a yellow state, it's difficult for someone to surprise you. In a white state at home, somebody crashes through your front door, you're not really that you're going to be startled. You're not going to be a few moments before you figure out what's going on. But if you're in a situation where the likelihood of something negative happening and the severity of that negative thing happening, you'd want to be in orange then. Heightened level of awareness. You sense that something's not right. You start to evaluate and formulate a plan B. What are we going to do? Evasion and diffusion works best here before the next level, right? Evasion is you find out what the threat is. Yeah, there's a thunderstorm way over there. It's moving this way. We make some decisions about that, and we say, okay, well, we need to stop this. We need to stop the operation soon because it's moving this way. So everybody, your crew, get together, watch that drone, start bringing the drone back home, or push the return to home feature, whatever, and get her done. And if it's a thunderstorm, we find some safe place to be so we don't get hit by lightning, because that's the major concern at this point. Red is, okay, now it's time to, this is too late. Now everything has happened. It's all fallen apart. We have to be ready. fight or flight point. At that point, where your body just takes over and just either gives you that urge just to run for your life or to be ready to just fight. High levels of stress at this point, momentary stress. So this is the kind of way. Nobody wants to live on red all the time, but if you're, again, if your girlfriend's downtown at Walmart at 2 in the morning and she's leaving the store, I mean, she should be at least orange, I would think, because hey, things could go bad very quick, especially if she sees another car or a gang of the hoodlums, or I don't know what hoodlums look like, but I mean, if there's a gang of people hanging around, guys hanging around, maybe she should be going. What is she going to do? She's going to keep going to the car. Maybe she should go back inside and call you up and wake you up and say, "Get your butt down here and pick me up because I'm sort of worried about this." That's what we're talking about here. And it converts into drone. Believe it or not, into what we do with drones is we want to be aware of what's going around. It's all about situational awareness and tapping into all of the other information around us. Okay, so we have some risk. Manage that risk. Develop methods of managing your risk. The FAA gives us some hints. It talks about the Paved Checklist. And we're going to go through that right here. It starts out with P. Pave is pilot. Are you ready for this flight? Asking yourself that question. Are you ready for this flight? Are you, is there any issues that would affect you, like your medical, you have a migraine headache, or are you taking prescription or over-the-counter drugs that might affect your vision or your thinking? Are you ready? Evaluate. Are you ready for the flight? And then the A, aircraft. See, pave. P. Now we're on the A. Pave is aircraft. Is the airplane safe to operate? We've done a pre-flight inspection. Yeah. Is the airplane safe to operate? Now, it falls apart here with environment because the FAA wanted to make it a V. Well, they had to use the V in the middle of environment. But okay, that's the V part. V part is environment. That's weather, airspace, terrain, people that might be not involved in the operation nearby. We're not allowed to fly over people, right? So environment. And then E would be external pressures. Are there outside pressures to complete the flight? Is your boss standing there, or is your buddies hanging there and saying, "Oh, I bet you can't do that"? Well, I can do that. That goes back to hazardous attitudes, right? Remember we talked about that. So are there any outside pressures to complete the flight? You rushed? So you check all these 4 things. Yeah, okay, this is good. So that's making a decision about risk. Because being unfit as a pilot, mentally or physically, is an added risk. Is the aircraft not quite up to par? Batteries are low, or propeller blades have been eroded and they're not quite as efficient. I don't know. The environment, the weather's not all that good, external pressures. These things are additive. Almost all accidents, virtually all accidents, are a chain of things that happen. Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit sick, but I'm pretty good. Okay, but that just becomes a factor when they do the investigation. That becomes a factor in the end result that resulted into an incident or an accident. Because it's not just that causes the accident. There's something else comes up that you're not quite ready for. Maybe the weather's not so good. So the pilot not feeling really good and the weather's not so good, then all it takes is just one little more trigger to cause the incident or accident. So what are we talking about with external pressures? Yeah, we're just talking about, like I said, your boss, even your mental attitude. Sometimes we just get in those attitudes that are somewhat hazardous. And that does lead us into the 5 hazardous attitudes. We talked about this in concept course prior to this, I believe. If not, hey, we're going to go and at least review it if we haven't already covered it. There are 5 hazardous attitudes that the FAA and the NTSB have identified as being not helpful, okay? They're all attitudes. We've all had those at one time or another. most of us had these kind of attitudes that just make things more difficult. And they've got a nice little chart here to help us with that. There's the anti-authority, which is basically, and you can read it yourself. I mean, it's in the Pilot Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, but we'll just review it since we're here anyway. Anti-authority is just don't tell me what to do. Now, pretty much all Americans, we fall in this category. That's the country was founded on this whole concept of King George ain't telling me what to do. So it's a cultural thing that's not for all cultures. Some cultures can accept that as well. That maybe the authority does have something important to tell us. So I'm not suggesting that we trust all authority. I'm just saying we want to be careful and evaluate properly why that rule is there. The FAA is a unique, I think, is a fairly unique organization, federal organization. Well, in that they are in charge, we've talked about it before, they're in charge of safety, of course, people and property. But they're also encourage commerce, basically making money. Their purpose in life is to promote aviation, commercial aviation. Okay? Private aviation, not so much, but that's why they're pushing to for more freedom for drone pilots. So if they're most interested in safety, then when somebody gets hurt or property gets damaged or somebody gets killed, they make a new rule because they don't want us to do that again. So the rules are, it's an old saying about the FAA, rules are written in blood. In other words, people died and they made that rule. So there's a purpose for nearly all of the rules, okay? If there's a purpose for all those rules, then we should be able to say, when we see the rules, we say, well, follow the rules, they're usually right. They're usually right because they were there because somebody got hurt. Well, we don't want to get hurt, or we don't want to hurt anybody or damage property. Not about getting caught, it's because we don't want to be the kind of person that would hurt somebody or damage somebody else's property. That's stealing. So, yeah, anti-authority, I get it, that's fine. But that's the attitude. The anecdote, they use the word antidote, which I find amusing, but the antidote is follow the rules. They're usually right. Then there's impulsivity. Okay, young men, but all people really have that problem from time to time. It says get it done quickly, do it right now. You got to do something right away. Don't stop thinking about it, just go get and do it. It'll be all right afterwards. And the antidote is not so fast, think first. Invulnerability, yeah, I'd laughingly like to think this was me when I was much younger. As I get older, I think, well, yeah, the pain and suffering could be, why do I want more pain and suffering in my life, right? So, but no, invulnerability, it can't happen to me. Yeah, the antidote is, yeah, it could happen to me. Yep. And you all have met people like that just seem to be accident prone, and they're always the ones who break their finger or get hit by a baseball or something like that. It's something always happening to them. We don't want to be like that. Then there's macho. I can do it. I'm going to prove it because I'll show them. Trying to prove themselves by taking risk in order to impress others, perhaps. Yeah, it's thought to be a male characteristic, but women, yeah, you've met people that are like that. Taking chances is foolish. That's the antidote. Taking chances is foolish. Then the odd one, I find this one odd, but there is the one of resignation. Like, what's the use? And they're the kind of people that depending all on luck and everything that happens. It's like, well, I don't have no control over things, so I'm just going to go out there, and if things go bad, nothing I can do about it. So they sort of give up, then don't try to reduce the risk or try to get out of the risky situation. They just, well, happy-go-lucky, perhaps, just go on, go do it, yeah. Or they may be the kind of pilot that's going to go along with the boss that gives some kind of wacky thing and say, okay, whatever, fine, you want me to do that? I'll do that. I know it's not going to work out, but I'll do it just to make you happy. No, we don't have to do that. We don't have to make people happy. We're not helpless. We can take action. We can affect the results. And that, man, I could talk for 45 minutes now about resignation that I think about it. There's a number of aviation accidents where a crew felt intimidated by the captain and didn't speak up even if they saw that they were about to die. They were unwilling to speak up. They were like, I can't, he doesn't listen to me. I'm not going to say anything. That's pretty sad. No one's helpless. But you do have to take action. Okay, so that's... Okay, so now we have an accident report. We just want to go over this. There's no video for it. But anyway, here's what was going on. This is Manhattan as a Verrazano Bridge. Let me get another color here. That's the Verrazano Bridge between Staten Island over here and New York City here. Manhattan is up here somewhere. So that sort of gives you an idea. So New York Harbor. Big old Class B airspace out in this area here. Not only that, but there was a TFR there, temporary flight restriction there as well. So that's the scenario. That's where we're going with this. Let me use, I guess I'll use white, yeah. Okay, so this line, the green line, is this Black Hawk helicopter doing a patrol. He's just security, right? TFR is all about, I don't know whether it was the president was there or what was going on. It could have been a game. Don't know what was going on, but so they're just patrolling, which is probably after 9/11. Yeah, this New York's a big target, blah, blah, blah. So he's patrolling along there at 300 feet, more or less. He's pretty low, but he's inspecting for, I don't know, North Korean submarines with nuclear. I don't know what he's doing, but he's hovering around, you know, flying around this route, cruising along. There's time stamps and all that on there. Well, this drone guy, he's over here. See where the white line is? He starts out of here and takes off, goes that way. And somewhere on the way back, it hits the helicopter. Let me read the report, okay? Owner of the DJI Phantom 4 that collided with the Army helicopter, Black Hawk helicopter, told federal investigators he lost sight of his quadcopter minutes before the collision. Now, he said he had attempted to activate the automatic return to home function without success and was surprised to learn that it collided with the helicopter more than 2 miles away. The pilot told the NTSB that he was not aware of the temporary flight restriction that was in effect at the time, or that he was launching inside a Class B controlled airspace. He told the NTSB he was equally unaware that flying a drone beyond line of sight was prohibited for hobby or commercial drone operation. Pilot commented to the NTSB investigator that his drone was on an autonomous mission, that he had lost sight of the drone. The collision occurred at 300 feet above the ground, that's right over here, 2.5 miles away from the launch site. Sunset was at 6:54. The accident occurred at 7:11, so it was after dark. The Army Black Hawk helicopter was struck in the main rotor blade and front window frame. They made a successful emergency landing shortly thereafter. Investigators found part of the drone inside the helicopter and tracked down the pilot through the manufacturing records. So they found the, I think I've got a picture of that right here. Yeah, there it is right there. That's the part they found, and they managed to find out, track it back to the owner of the drone. I thought that was pretty amusing too. Not very amusing that they hit the helicopter and broke part of the window. That was pretty astounding to me. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. This just looked like it was a DJI Phantom, right? Yeah, Phantom 4, same as the ones we have here. And you've seen them, we've flown them. Wow, crazy, man. Okay, could have been really bad. So, I count 4 regulations that were violated for this guy, right? So, it would be really cool if we were in class right now, but if we weren't in class, I'm going to tell you what they were, and you follow along, okay? Well, one regulation is we have to give way to all aircraft, okay? 14 CFR 107.37 says we must give way to all aircraft. Well, he didn't give way to him. Of course, he couldn't see it. But, the second one was he flew into Class B airspace, which is probably went around about the same size as the TFR, so he took off at least in the Class B airspace without permission. It flew within the TFR as well. So there's another one. The UAS pilot was unaware of the TFR. He said he was unaware of it, but is that an excuse? That's not an excuse. You got to know. That's one of the things you got to check. And the last one was flew beyond the visual line of sight. He said he was lost sight of it, right? He should have immediately returned. 14 CFR 107.31 must be able to see the unmanned aircraft throughout the entire flight. And that includes even if you're on an autonomous mission. The PIC or the VO, visual observer, must maintain visual line of sight with the UAS at all times. So 2 violations there. So, comprendo? Yeah, that was a pretty serious accident. There was another one in, I think it was Los Angeles. There's a video. I might try to find that video and put it on this module as well. Actually, a picture from the, well, I can't recall it, whether it was from the drone or from the, I think it was from the drone's perspective of the helicopter, just missing the drone. It's like, well, what in the world were you doing up there? You need to be aware of these things. If you see a helicopter coming your way, you need to dive for the ground. Anyway, so that's roughly what we need to discuss about the human factors. Let's see if there's anything I might have missed. Hazardous Mr. Checklist. Okay, to avoid missing important steps, always use an appropriate checklist. Because humans are, good point, I'm glad I was reminded of that. Humans easily get distracted, but having a checklist, a written checklist, will help you to not miss items. Airline pilots, manned aircraft pilots, we all use checklists. Nothing to be embarrassed about. I know it seems like there's so very few things to worry about in a drone, but there are a lot of things you need to be thinking about. So having a checklist, I don't know how many times we've left the school here to go on a field trip and somebody forgets a cable or a battery or something. We'll get in the field and then they can't fly. They'd have to sort of sit there. Well, a checklist would have been helpful for them to make sure they have all the parts. Just to even do the mission. Once you get out there, then there's other things you need to be concerned about. So mitigating risks, the best way to mitigate risk is to establish some kind of checklist and operational procedures, some kind of guidelines. You need to have some kind of guidelines for how you're going to perform the mission, which goes back to checklists, truly. But anyway, I'm around. You just need to call me, text me, email me, make an appointment to meet me, and we can talk about this some more. But after you watch this, check the Eastern 401, and I might have another video on the thing if I can find one about the Los Angeles situation, and do the test, and that'll be good. Okay, cool.